In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's, there are few. This is a quote from the Zen master Shunryu Suzuki, and it presents a quiet paradox that feels deeply counterintuitive. We are raised to worship expertise. We see it as the ultimate goal, to become so proficient, so knowledgeable, that the path forward is clear and singular. We believe that with enough experience, the messy world of possibilities narrows to a single correct answer. We see the expert's narrow view as a sign of mastery. But what if it's a cage? What if the most profound breakthroughs don't come from knowing the answer, but from being free enough to ask a different kind of question? Let me take you back to the early 18th century. The world was being connected by sea, but it was a terrifyingly dangerous affair. Sailors could figure out their latitude, their north-south position easily enough. But longitude, their east-west position, was a complete mystery. A ship sailing from London to the Caribbean was, for all intents and purposes, lost in the east-west dimension the moment it left port. A small miscalculation could mean missing an island and sailing into oblivion, or smashing into rocks in the dead of night. This wasn't a small problem. It was the single greatest scientific challenge of the age, and it was costing thousands of lives and fortunes. The British government, in its desperation, created the Board of Longitude and offered a prize worth millions of pounds in today's money to anyone who could solve it. The greatest minds in Europe turned their attention to the problem. And who were the experts? They were astronomers, giants of the intellect like Sir Isaac Newton and Edmund Halley. And in their expert minds, there was only one possibility. The solution, they were certain, had to be found in the sky. It would be a celestial solution, a lunar distance method involving complex astronomical charts and observations of the moon's position relative to the stars. For them, the problem of longitude was fundamentally a problem of astronomy. They were the experts, and this was their world. The possibilities had narrowed. But the man who would solve the problem wasn't looking at the sky. He wasn't an astronomer. He wasn't a mathematician. He wasn't even a university-educated gentleman. His name was John Harrison, and he was a carpenter from a small village. Harrison's expertise was in building things out of wood, specifically clocks. To the astronomers on the Board of Longitude, he was a nobody, a crank. He was so far outside their world that he might as well have been from another planet. And because he was a beginner in their world, his mind was not cluttered with their assumptions. He didn't see a problem of astronomy. He saw a problem of time. Harrison knew that if a sailor had a clock that could keep perfect time on a ship, the time back in London, for instance, he could compare it to the local time at noon and calculate his longitude precisely. The experts knew this too, but they dismissed it. In their expert opinion, it was impossible. The violent motion of a ship, the changes in temperature and humidity, would make any clock of the era wildly inaccurate. So while the astronomers were trying to map the heavens, John Harrison was at his workbench trying to build a new kind of clock. He wasn't refining an existing solution. He was inventing an entirely new category of solution. He invented new metal alloys that didn't rust or expand in the heat. He created caged roller bearings to reduce friction. He spent decades of his life, not on theory, but on the patient, tangible work of a craftsman. He built a series of sea clocks, each one more ingenious than the last. And when he finally presented his masterpiece, the H4 chronometer, it was tested on a voyage to Jamaica. It worked perfectly. It solved the problem. But did the experts celebrate? No. They were horrified. They refused to believe that this uneducated provincial carpenter could have succeeded where they had failed. They changed the rules. They demanded more tests. They withheld the prize money for years. They couldn't accept a solution that came from outside their world, from outside their narrow field of possibility. Harrison's success was an indictment of their own expertise. The story of John Harrison isn't a simple tale of a lone genius. It's a lesson in the danger of the expert's mind. Expertise builds walls. It creates a vocabulary and a set of assumptions that can become a prison, making you blind to answers that lie just outside. Harrison didn't succeed because he was smarter than Newton. He succeeded because he was ignorant of the correct way to solve the problem. His beginner's mind gave him the freedom to pursue a possibility that the experts had already dismissed. So, look at the challenges you face, in your work, in your life, the problems that seem intractable. Ask yourself, what are the expert assumptions that are framing this problem? What is the solution that everyone in the room has already dismissed as impossible? Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs don't come from finding a new answer within the existing framework. They come from having the courage to ignore the framework entirely